Hello and welcome to the ALZ Weekly video series. This is our first one and we're excited to kick this off for 2026. Today I'm joined by the rest of the ALZ core team and some of us are also missing, but the guys who are available today to come and talk with us. We've already got our first question in, guys, and we've got quite a lot in the form that we put out earlier this week. So lots of questions to cover in the upcoming week, so make sure you stay tuned. To ask more questions, by the way, if you haven't seen it, head to aka.ms/ALZ/questions and you can file your form and file your question in there. But today we have the question of how to use AVM in ALZ and what will be the best option, Bicep or Terraform, right? A question we quite often all get. Matt, do you want to give us your answer or first take on that one?
Yes, and I will be diplomatic. So first of all, for those who don't know, AVM, Azure Verified Modules, is an infrastructure as code standard that we came up with a couple of years ago and have been developing ever since. And actually, AVM is not hard, tightly coupled to Azure Landing Zones. Azure Verified Modules has a much wider scope. So in terms of, it's got resource modules for deploying resources in the best practice way, and it's got pattern modules for deploying kind of more complex architectural patterns using those resource modules. So ALZ actually predates AVM by quite some time. So we didn't, when we first released infrastructure as code accelerators for Azure Landing Zones, they weren't using Azure Verified Modules. So we've then been on a bit of a journey. Terraform was AVM last year, wasn't it? This time last year we released that roughly. So we then have all the modules we use to deploy the core platform Azure Landing Zone, in terms of including the management groups, the management resources like the log analytics, the connectivity. So we've got two connectivity modules, one for hub and spoke and one for virtual WAN. So all of those are now AVM. So you can choose to use them on your own. You can just take our modules and compose them however you like, or you can use the Accelerator, which Jared's going to talk about in a minute. The Accelerator does loads of extra good stuff for you, so that's kind of our recommended route. Bicep's taken a little bit longer to get out there. So Zach, why don't you tell us a little bit about how we're doing that?
Yeah, thanks, Matt. So yeah, we have just actually released Bicep approximately about 2 weeks ago. So now we have a lot more flexibility around being able to customize your entire configuration. So previously, we would essentially pull down the repository during each pipeline run, and then you pretty much only had the flexibility to update the parameter files. Now we've kind of updated that to give you the full repository itself with all the modules, so you can make whatever changes. You no longer have to wait for us. We also use deployments, stacks, and a variety of other things to kind of handle the overall management of the resources and kind of get you out of that concern with having to manually go ahead and up or delete and kind of manage the policy assignments, which was a pain for a lot of different people in the past. And then lastly, we did start to look at, again, just making a bit more flexible from a policy management perspective, from being able to have both your custom policies as well as the Azure specific default policies. So they're a bit separated out now. So now you have a little bit less concern with having to worry about getting into an upgrade, kind of a painful state. So yeah, I would highly recommend you take a look at that. It is, again, just out. We have some things that we're working through to kind of continually enhance it, but we're looking through those and would appreciate any feedback. With that, I think I hand it over to Jared to kind of give a quick update on terms of the Accelerator and kind of what that offers you.
Yeah, so we did a bunch of improvements to the Accelerator whilst we were working on Bicep, but hot off the press as well, we've made it even easier to use the Accelerator. So as of today, you don't need to supply any parameters into the Accelerator. We can just type deploy Accelerator, which is part of our ALZ PowerShell module, so you have to install that first. But once you've done that, you just run deploy Accelerator, and it's going to do some checks for software, which is all good. It's saying where do I want to store the files. So you need to cache some files whilst it's running, basically. I'm just going to take the default there. I've got something in there already, but I'm just going to overwrite it. So I'm going to say yes. I'm going to choose Terraform. I'm going to choose GitHub, which is the default. I'm going to choose a full multi-region hub and spoke virtual networking for my connectivity. So I'm going to choose scenario 1 here, but there's obviously different scenarios that you can choose from as a starting point. So it's just setting up my folder structure, and it's good. And it's asking me, do I want to interactively fill out the configuration? So I'm going to say yes to that. It's just going to take 1 minute to query Azure and find my management groups and subscriptions and regions and things like that.
This might even be hot off the press for Zach, right? Like I can see Zach looking a little bit like question there. We've been busy on this over the last couple of days without Zach being in the loop. So yeah, here you go, Zach. This is something.
While we're waiting, why don't we talk about which one you should pick? Because that was the question, right? Which So my take on this is whichever one your team is best suited for, because it's down to your team skills. But obviously Terraform's better.
So I guess Terraform is a little bit more mature because it's been around a little bit longer in terms of the configuration that you can do in it. But everything that you can do in Terraform, you can do in Bicep. It's just you have to go into the Bicep code to do it. Whereas with Terraform, everything can be done through the configuration file So that's kind of the biggest difference, I guess, in terms of maturity. But Bicep is going to be at the same point, like no time, right?
Yeah.
And I think on the Bicep front, like to put some arguments in that case, obviously there's no state file to manage, but that's a pro and a con in some ways. We now use deployment stacks, right, Zach, as you said, which gives us some benefit, but there are some bugs. There are some, it still doesn't have what if, right?
To some respect, correct.
So there's still some features that are missing. So I feel like in 2026 that the gap will get smaller and smaller and smaller. I don't feel like there's the chasm of the gap that there used to be. Like it used to be like cut and dry, like there was huge feature differences, but it's getting really close nowadays. So I think it really does like what works for you as your organization. I think that's the most diplomatic answer, as you said, Matt. But I would probably vote, I do both, but I would probably lean towards Bicep because that's what I'm more familiar with. But Terraform wouldn't scare me either because, it also is just as easy to get going with the Accelerator.
And if you talk to our Azure Resource Manager and Bicep product groups, they'll actually generally say to lean towards Bicep if you have no inclination to go multi-cloud. But if you have inclination to go multi-cloud, then it would probably make more sense to start with Terraform. So that way you're not having to learn 2 different languages and jump between them.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. I think your query might have finished by now, right?
Yeah, it did finish, but I kind of skipped over this decision point here. So the Accelerator also bootstraps CI/CD and version control and everything else. So you need to choose that. And we default to GitHub because that's kind of the leading one for us. But you can also use Azure DevOps, and you can also split it out into a local file system if you want to bootstrap it yourself, basically. So yeah, down here it's spat out a list of regions for my bootstrap resources. So it needs a few things in Azure, like a storage account for the state file if it's Terraform, and some identities and things like that. I'm just going to choose Sweden Central, which I think is number 49. And then it's asking me which management group I want to build it under. I'm going to use number 2, which is one that I've set up for this demo. And then it's got my subscriptions here. So it's asking me which subscription I want to use for management. So we have 4 platform subscriptions: management, connectivity, identity, and security. So it's just going to take me through those. So I'm going to choose 3. I'm going to choose 2 for identity. I'm going to choose 1 for connectivity. I'm going to choose 6 for my security one because I don't have one for Azure DevOps. And then it's asking me, my CLI zoomed in here, right? So it's going off the top of the screen, but it is telling me what I'm asked what to do here. And it also links back to our planning docs. So you can find exactly where more information about each of these things is shown in these docs here. So you can link back to those. So for my Bootstrap subscription, I'm going to choose number 4, which is my Bootstrap. Then there's some things for naming convention on resources. I'm just going to take the defaults here. Whether to use self-hosted or Microsoft-hosted runners for GitHub, I'm going to choose self-hosted, and I'm going to choose private networking so that my storage account is not public. I need a personal access token. I'm just going to copy and paste that from another screen. That's going there, and as you can see, it knows that this is sensitive, so it's obfuscating it. I need my GitHub org name, which I'm going to copy and paste as well. I'm just going to put myself, my own account, as the apply approver. So this is between the plan and the apply stage for Terraform, or the what if and deploy stage for Bicep. So I'm just going to put myself there. And that's it done. It's saying, do I want to open it in VS Code and fill out the things that I need to fill out? Which I do. So I'm going to hit yes. I'm just going to take the default, which is yes. And it's going to open VS Code for me, hopefully nice and zoomed in for everybody. Very zoomed in. So
Very.
let me just collapse this a little bit and close Copilot. I don't know how to close it, sorry. Okay, maybe it's a bit too zoomed in that, but basically the things that I put in there, it's filled out this file for me. So it's put everything that I selected into this file ready to go. Historically, you would have had to go into this file and put these things in yourself, but it's got prompts now. It also, like for the sensitive things, it stored them as environment variables rather than putting them in this file in plain text. So they're in my current session in the terminal. They're not stored in this file. And these things it didn't change because these are the things that we chose at the start. But I do need to update my platform landing zone configuration file. So in here, I need to tell it what regions I want to deploy into. So like, for example, if I wanted to deploy into UK South as my primary and UK West as my secondary, I would do that. And then that file's saved and I'm all good. I'm just going to minimize that. I also have to fill in my Defender email security contact, but I'm not going to do that right now. So it's telling me here what I need to fill in, basically. So I'm happy that those configuration files are done. So I'm going to type yes, I'm good to go. And now it's going to follow the same process that it did historically. It's going to bootstrap it with Terraform, basically, and deploy everything into GitHub or Azure DevOps if I'd have chosen that, basically. So I'm not going to make you sit and watch that, but that's the improvement that we've made, is that sort of guided interactive mechanism for doing it. You can still do it how we did it before. You can supply the input config files and use exactly the same method that we did before. And we have got that in the doc still as an advanced scenario. But now, I didn't even have to go into the file system particularly there at all. And it just did everything for me. So
that's awesome. And that is something we even just discussed tail end of this week, and Jared worked until God knows what hour to finish that. Last night, me and Matt both woke up to Teams messages this morning. We're like, you do realize you didn't have to do that overnight, but I think Jared got in the mood and went for it. So that's awesome. And it's very much like the Accelerator in the original days, right? It was very much prompt based, and we took it away for a while because it was adding complexity, but we now have been able to add that back, which is awesome. So yeah, any final thoughts from anybody else before we wrap these up? Want to keep these short. So anything on, answering that question, Bicep or Terraform, and hopefully you've got the gist of AVM is the only way that we recommend you deploying stuff now on both of our solutions for both Bicep and Terraform via the Accelerator. Use AVM. So everything's AVM based from us now. But yeah, any passing thoughts, team?
Good.
No? All good. Yeah. All right. Well, with that, we'll thank you for tuning in. And don't forget, raise your questions at aka.ms/ALZ/questions, and expect to see more from us each week. But for now, thanks and have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Bye.